Hare Krishna.
This meeting is being recorded.
So welcome everyone to our class on the Nectar of Instruction, which is a verse-by-verse study program. Today is our 16th class and we are going to study text number 7 of this book written by Srila Rupa Goswami. The topic for today's class is a very important topic, and I would say this verse would be one of the most fundamental verses as far as our practice of or sadhana is concerned. So the topic is practice devotional service not for its taste but for its healing potency. So we will elaborate on this during the class. It is primarily about one of the main activities in our devotional life, which is chanting the holy names of the Lord. For Mangalacharan prayers, we would like to request Anuradha Mataji to do the honors, but I don't see Anuradha Mataji on the screen. So may I request any other devotee who is present here would like to volunteer to chant the Mangalacharan prayers?
Should I, Prabhuji?
Okay, Rakesh Prabhuji, thank you very much. Kindly do the chanting of the Mangalacharan prayers.
Om Agyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajimam साद्वैतम सावधूतम परिजन सहितम कृष्ण चैतन्य देवम श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीन बंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे.
Thank you, Rakesh Prabhuji. Thank you very much. So we will not do the translation because we have a little bit lengthy class today, and we will straight away jump to the recap of the previous class. And for that, I would like to kindly invite His Grace Jivan Radha Govind Prabhu, disciple of His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. So Jivan Prabhu lives in Bangalore and already an initiated devotee. Jivan Prabhu, kindly help us recapping the previous class. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I am
Yes,
audible?
yes, you are audible. Thank you. Yes.
First of all, I want to thank His Grace Keshav Gopal Prabhu for giving me this opportunity to make the recap on Nectar of Instruction-Text number 6. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Actually, the heading of that thing is avoid seeing a pure devotee with a material vision. Whereas in text number 5, the teaching was on associating carefully with an advanced devotee. The text number 6 is about how we should not see a Uttam Adhikari or what precaution we should take while dealing with them. Actually, a nice analogy is given in this particular shloka. Ganges water, sometimes during the rainy season, may contain bubbles, foam, or mud, or impurities. Still, the Ganges water is always transcendent and is never polluted. Similarly, the Uttama Adhikari, even though he may have some bodily problems or from the material vision, he may be having some defects in his nature or body, but still he is Uttama Adhikari only. This is the crux of this shloka. This verse has three sub-themes. namely pure consciousness. Next is the offensive vision, which is the major portion of this particular text. Then final conclusion is understanding the devotees glories. Actually, Prabhupada gives the definition of material. There are two types of consciousness. One is the material consciousness. Material consciousness means material enjoyment. Life is concentrated on family, job, etc. The people who are in material life, they do not believe in afterlife happening, and they do not believe in God also. Then next is the spiritual consciousness. Spiritual consciousness means how to love and serve Krishna. The serve God, that is, God is no one according to our Bhagavad Gita understanding. Lord is Krishna. How to serve, how to love and serve Lord Krishna. Then Prabhupada gives also a definition of the pure devotee. Pure devotee means completely devoid of material consciousness, and he is also called an unalloyed devotee, which means no external impurities, selfish desires in the form of fruitive activity or in the form of a desire for impersonal liberation and so on. And so an unalloyed devotee can transcend beyond material consciousness. Prabhupada is giving two quotes of scriptures, BG Bhagavad Gita 14.26 and also Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That is Anna Abhilashita Sunya. I am not going to dwell on that. Then what a pure devotee's inner consciousness is like, it is beyond the modes is explained in BG 14.26, whereas definition of pure devotional service is explained, or Uttama Bhakti is explained in the verse Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Now coming to the second topic, that is offensive vision. Then the offensive vision perceptions is the following are the offensive perception which we should not have, which we should not give rise to against the Uttama Adhikari. One is the bodily defect, second is the low birth, third is the accidental mistakes committed by the pure devotees, third envying, fourth criticism and disciplinary action against them, sixth is the advising or correcting them. First, let us take to that bodily defects. When we see bodily defects in a devotee, it may be due to bad karma. This is not the right way of thinking. According to Vedic principles, karma principle is mainly to set accountability and is not to run away from accountability. If we do not follow the proper dharma or duty, we are going to be bound by the laws of karma, and we are accountable for our action. This type of bodily defect can happen not only for a pure devotee, it can happen to other people also. Actually, 3 examples were given in the class: mother serving a crying baby, justice to a robbed person, justice to a raped victim. All these cases also, we cannot apply the karma factor, which was also explained in the class. In the context of bodily defect, in a particular devotee, it could be due to old age, disease, ugly look, etc., etc. We don't have to dwell on that. We have to focus on the devotional potency of that person rather than the shortcomings, that is defects, which may be possibly due to their present, that may be possibly due to their past karma. In order to explain that thing, Prabhupada quotes the Bhagavad Gita 9.30, Apichetu Dujacharo Bhajate Mam Ananyabha Sadhureva Mantavya Samyak Vyavasite Siha. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devout service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. When a devotee is definitely on his, he is doing the devotional service, and even though he might have committed some offense, or he may be committing, I might have committed because of he may be having the physical disability or problems or the physical appearance or disability, but still it is not a matter of concern, because as long as he is determined in his devotional service definitely is to be considered saintly. So the bodily defect is not a major factor. Next is the low birth. Perceiving a pure devotee due to birth in the family of a Shudra, Chandala, Vaishya, and sometimes the devotees may be from Western. Prabhupada, when he went to states, a lot of devotees were there. He spread in Krishna consciousness, lot of devotees from there. So in of them, when Prabhupada brought some of these devotees to India, a lot of reactions there were from our people in India. One of the reaction was, instead of appreciating these devotees, we start thinking that our culture is great or superior, is sort of a false ego. And one more reaction was that perception of the visiting devotees as a low bond, and they cannot take to our culture. This is some sort of a superiority complex. Both the things are not good. And also it was also explained in the class by Prabhuji about the caste Goswamis. They are the people in and around Vrindavan temple who are only born in the family of devotees, but presently they are not the devotees, and they call themselves Goswamis. Prabhupada says in the purport that the title Goswami is the monopoly of only an advanced pure devotee practicing Krishna consciousness, and not the caste Goswamis. The conclusion is the devotion is not decided by birth, and devotion is decided only by surrender to Krishna, like the Sri Prabhupada's Western devotees who came to India. Next point is the when accidental mistakes are committed. Mistakes are decided not on externals, but only internals matter. Sometimes pure devotees commit mistakes. How should we look at it? Prabhupada explained this. Sometimes pure devotees, while teaching Krishna consciousness, may use a wrong word or a wrong verse while explaining. This happens accidentally, and this is not the intention of the devotee who is doing the preaching. He has in his heart. He has always the intention to serve Lord Krishna, and this should be taken. This should be taken as the criteria, and we should not mind about the accidental mistakes committed. This question was asked by Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj, one of Prabhupada devotees, while he was having a morning walk. Similarly, a grammatical mistake, something committed, Prabhupada, he was also doing the translation for Prabhupada's when Prabhupada gave the commentaries for the scriptures, he was doing the translation work. Some of the grammatical mistakes, he was an editor, he used to correct it. So even there, only the grammatical mistakes were corrected, the content was remaining the same. This shows that the material defect or the external defects cannot affect the superior potency of a devotee. Next, envying. Next point is envying the exalted position of the devotees. There is no room for jealousy or in bhakti or Krishna consciousness. Envying a pure devotee for their exalted position is the wrong attitude if wrong attitude of behaving with them. Srila Prabhupada, these are also examples are given from Srila Prabhupada's life. Prabhupada went to US, spread Krishna conscious movement. He attracted a number of Western disciples from America and brought them to Vrindavan, and they wanted to visit some of the holy places like Haridwar, Vrindavan, and all that. At that time, one of the godbrothers from the family made a plea that Prabhupada went to USA. He was previously a businessman with his skills, and he has brought successfully a number of low-born people. See, this is one of the things, it is not the correct attitude as his disciple, and that we appreciate it. This is not the correct type of correct attitude. Similarly, when the Gaudiya Mata, it was established by Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktivedanta Saraswati, Thakur, it was about to more or less like to be dissolved. Actually, that was in chaos. At that time, Prabhupada rightly returned from United States. At that time also, some of the God brothers of Prabhupada made comments like, see, Prabhupada was a peripheral devotee, he was only a grahastha, but like that, they were commenting. All these things, is to show the enviness or a jealousy of the people. And this is not the correct attitude. And criticism on the next point is criticism or disciplinary action against pure devotees. This type of behavior was more prominent during medieval period when Bhakti movement was progressing. Due to self-interest, due to this is some personal or selfish interest, some pseudo-spiritualists who were in power or had influence with the king at that time started criticizing, started taking disciplinary action also against the pure devotees just because their low caste birth. This is not the correct attitude. The example was Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was a great, he was from a Muslim family. He was a great devotee of the Lord. He was given the title of Nama Acharya by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Still, some of the jealousy-minded Hindus complained against him to the king, and Haridas Thakur was actually the Haridas Thakur also convinced the king that I am preaching people, the people I am preaching, I am a Muslim. The Quran and the Quran, everything is talking about the Paramatma, and he convinced the king also, but still he was beaten in the market with a whip. And he also was thrown into Ganges River. Somehow he did. Somehow he escaped, and all these things happened in his life. He unnecessarily had to undergo all these ordeals. This is a wrong attitude towards a sincere and pure devotee of the Lord. Final point is the advice or the correction. Advice or correction to a pure devotee who is in the position of a guru is also an offense. It is called Vaishnava Aparada. Advanced Vaishnava should not be subjected to the should not be subject to the advice of a neophyte Vaishnava. This is not the correct attitude. It's a superior Uttama Adhikari should never be given any sort of an advice or correction. The final things are the understanding a devotee's glory. These are the points are the pure devotee is not a condition soul. He does not have the bad association cannot do harm. No offense they don't commit offense to holy name, and only a devotee can see a pure devotee, distinguish pure devotee by his action. These are all some of these things which are given in the purport by Prabhupada. I am thanking Prabhuji for giving me this opportunity for presentation, and I have tried to do my best for the presentation. And if any mistakes are there, I request Prabhuji to excuse me. And I also thank all the members of this group who are given the passion hearing to my presentation. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Very nicely covered. So let me now start the class for today. Thanks a lot. Okay, so now we are on the 7th verse today, and we have just completed the summary of the previous class. Okay, now where we are in the book, we are at this point. So we have covered all the first theme. The second theme, adopt things favorable to bhakti. We have covered verse number 6. Now we are awaken dormant taste for Krishna's names. So far what we have done all the time, all the while is we have understood, and you can see from verse number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, we are actually focusing mostly on how to take the association. It was an elaborate discussion on associating and how to do the association. But in association, what do we do? A primary activity in association is to glorify the Supreme Lord. And one of the best way of glorifying the Supreme Lord is by chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord. So that is what the theme of the next verse is. How to do bhajan kriya, how to do chanting of the holy names. So awaken dormant taste for Krishna's names. That is the 7th verse. And you can see here also in this slide, text number 1 to 3 was at the level of Shraddha, faith. Text number 4 to 6 is mainly about Sadhu Sangha, association. Actually, text number 2 and 3 also talks about Sadhu Sangha, but uh, 4, 5, 6 it talks most in more detail about Sadhu Sangha, explicit detail about Sadhu Sangha. But in text 7, we are talking about Bhajan Kriya. And the effect of Bhajan Kriya is we get purified. Our anarthas, our dirty things of the heart are gone. And that establishes us in a very healthy position, which is Nishtha, Ruchi, and so on. So you would see that in text number 7, we are primarily talking about Bhajan Kriya leading us to purification of our heart. This is the text number 7. So I will recite this text for everyone's benefit. The meter in this text is same Vasant Tilak as it was in text number 5, 6, and 6. So text number 7 also will be recited in that meter. And as I was mentioning to you in the past also, this is the same meter used in the Brahma Samhita singing that we do. So I will sing this for you. स्यात् कृष्ण नाम चरितादि सिताप्य विद्या पित्तोपतप्त रसनस्य नारोचिकानु किन्तु आदरात् अनुदिनं खलु सैव जुष्टा स्वाद्विक्रमाद् भवति तद्गदमूलहन्त्री. Let us look at each of the line and try to understand the meaning of individual lines, and then we will consolidate the whole meaning. Syat Krishna Nam Charitadi Sitapya. Sitapya. So Sita actually means sweet, and Prabhupada has used the word sweet candy. Sweet candy in Hindi is known as mishri. So you might have taken this mishri, which is something like crystalline in shape and tastes very, very sweet. It is little different from sugar, but it is very, very sweet. So what it is saying is that Krishna's name Charitadi. Charit means character or pastimes. Uh, Nam is Krishna's name. So Krishna's name, pastimes, etc. are. So Syad actually stands for this word called are. Krishna's name, pastimes are sweet. They are sweet. Lord Krishna's names, pastime, etc. are very sweet. But avidya pittopatapta rasanasya na rochikanu. Pittopatapta. So pitta actually means bile secretion. So there is a bile juice that is secreted in the body. And when this bile juice secretion is not done in a proper way, then it can afflict somebody or some person with this disease called jaundice. Yeah? So pittopatapta. Pittopatapta means afflicted with the jaundice, with the disease of jaundice. Yeah? And if one is afflicted with jaundice, then what happens in jaundice? There is one specific peculiar characteristic of jaundice is that in jaundice, if you give that patient or give that person who is sick with jaundice some sweet candy, like mishri, if you give that person a sweet candy, then that sweet candy actually sounds or tastes bitter. Na rochi kanu, it doesn't taste good. And this bitter taste is mainly because of jaundice. And this bitter taste actually, this jaundice is compared with avidya. Avidya means not having proper knowledge. So Lord Krishna's names, pastimes are very sweet, but one who is afflicted with jaundice, as a person who is afflicted with jaundice cannot experience the sweetness of the sugar candy. Similarly, the person who is afflicted with the disease of avidya cannot properly taste the sweetness in the names of Lord Krishna. in the pastimes of Lord Krishna, and so on. So this is the meaning of first two lines, which is primarily about comparing avidya with the disease called jaundice. Like in jaundice, a person cannot taste sweet candy. Similarly, a person afflicted with the disease of avidya cannot appreciate the sweetness in the name of Lord Krishna, in the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Now, uh, so the first two lines gives the disease, gives the symptoms of the disease, but the next second two lines actually gives the cure, and also tells how the uh, cure actually manifests, how the health actually recovers. It says, Kintva adarad anudinam khalu saiva jushta. Adarad means carefully, with adar, with respect, with following the rules and regulations properly. Kintva means however, but. Kintu, like we have this word kintu in Hindi. So kintu adarad anudinam. Anudinam means day by day, regularly, on a regular basis. Khalu saiva jushta. Khalu saiva jushta. Sa means that sweet name. If somebody is uh, chanting or taking that name, or administering that dose of holy name with adar and with regularity. So adar means following the rules and regulation, and anudinam actually means with regular uh, commitment. Kintu adarad anudinam khalu saiva jushta swadvi kramad bhavati tadagada moola hantri. Tadagada moola hantri. Swadvi kramad. Krama means gradually, slowly and gradually, like we say in English, slowly and gradually. Swadvi word is coming from swad, taste. Yeah? So a natural relish awakens, and gradually it awakens. Swadvi kramad bhavati means it gradually awakens. A natural relish awakens. Tadagad moola hantri. Tadagad means the disease. Tadagad means the disease. Uh, yeah, of that disease. Mula means from the root, and hantri means it is destroyed. So what the bottom two lines are saying of this verse is that if somebody is chanting these sweet holy names of the Lord with respect, with a commitment, and doing it regularly on a regular basis, then what happens is a natural relish, a natural taste actually awakens on the tongue, and it destroys that disease of avidya. Tadagada. Tadagada means which disease? Jaundice or avidya. Moolahantri, from its root. It will destroy it from its root. So those who are aware of this disease called jaundice would know that in Ayurveda, the cure of jaundice is actually taking the sweet candy. But the sweet candy, when the patient takes this sweet candy, it tastes bitter. But gradually, if he continues to take this sweet candy regularly as prescribed by the physician, then the jaundice is cured, and the natural relish of that sweet candy comes back. So what tastes bitter is also the medicine for curing the disease. So that is how Srila Rupa Goswami is comparing uh, in this particular verse the disease of avidya with jaundice. And as in jaundice, the sweetness or sweet candy tastes bitter. Similarly, to a person who is afflicted with avidya, uh, does not appreciate the sweetness of the holy name and the pastimes of the Lord. But if he continues to do that on a rules, following the rules and regulation on a regular basis, then slowly and gradually that taste naturally awakens on the tongue, and that disease of avidya is destroyed completely from the root. So that is the text number 7. So this is the, I would say, this is the one of the most fundamental verses, which if we can appreciate it, which we can actually uh, absorb with some conviction, with some depth, it can become a guiding principle in all for all of us as far as our sadhana is concerned. So the primary sadhana in devotional life is chanting of the holy names. So Shravanam Kirtanam. So those are the two important limbs of bhakti that we perform in devotional life. And if we understand this verse and appreciate this verse, it can become very inspiring text for us to continue and persevere in our devotional sadhana day by day. So these are some of the important word meanings. So Sita is actually sugar candy. It means sweet. Upatapta. Upatapta means afflicted. Uh, Pittopatapta, that is the word in the words. Pitta means bile. Pittopatapta, afflicted. Rasanasya. So rasana actually means the tongue. Rasana means the tongue. It's one of the senses. Rasanasya, of the tongue. Rochika. Rochika comes, this word comes from ruchi. Rochika means palatable, which is very tasty. Kramat. Krama means one by one, gradually, in a particular systematic order. Kramat, gradually. And Hantri is the destroyer. So these are some of the uh, difficult ones as far as the words in Sanskrit are concerned in this verse. And if you can make some friendship with these words, the deeper meaning of the Sanskrit verse becomes very, very clear. Now I will read the translation as given by Srila Prabhupada verbatim, and you will probably appreciate the meaning of the verse very nicely. The holy name, character, pastimes, and activities of Krishna are all transcendently sweet like sugar candy. Although the tongue of one afflicted by the jaundice of avidya cannot taste anything sweet, it is wonderful that simply by careful chanting these names, sweet names, every day, a natural relish awakens within his tongue and his disease is gradually destroyed at the root. Hmm? So this is how Prabhupada is translating. Probably you will appreciate how he have translated this after going through the meanings, word meanings, and so on. Now let us analyze the purport given by Srila Prabhupada, and I have divided it into 5 themes as such. And in these 5 themes, the first 4 themes are actually directly coming from the purport as written by Srila Prabhupada. This last theme, which is material versus spiritual happiness, is something which is not given in the purport by Srila Prabhupada. But in order to understand the purport of Srila Prabhupada on this very, very important topic, we will like to elaborate on this theme called material versus spiritual happiness. Because this verse typically talks about avidya and curing of avidya. What happens when we cure avidya? A natural relish occurs on the tongue, and that's what removes the disease from its root. And when that happens, and that actually gives us a spiritual happiness. So this verse is primarily contrasting what is the symptom of material happiness and what is the symptom of spiritual happiness. So Prabhupada has explained it in first 4 themes that I have mentioned here. But in the last theme, we will go a little deeper, little deeper on understanding the difference between material versus spiritual happiness. So let us take these themes one by one. So before I go into the details, let me explain you the flow of the first 4 themes. So the flow of first 4 themes is, we will first of all see what is the disease, what are the symptoms of the disease. So when the disease manifests, first of all we check what are the symptoms. Are you having fever? Are you having cough, cold, any irritation in the throat, like that? Then we like to understand after the symptom what possibly could be the cause of the disease. This is called so diagnosing the disease. What could be the cause of the disease? So once the cause we understand, then comes the cure. What is the cure? What medicine one should take should you go for any physiotherapy, should you go for surgery, whatever. So the cure is there. Then after the cure, the patient recovers. So what is the healthy situation? How does the healthy situation look like? So it is beyond cure. So one is a situation when we are diseased, we are not healthy. When we take the cure, we actually recuperate. We don't regain our health quickly. We gain our health slowly and gradually. But once we gain our health completely, we then further try to improve upon our health. We try to become more healthy. We not only are getting rid of our disease, but rather we are now healthy. We have good appetite. We have a good strength. We have good enthusiasm, and so on. So what is the healthy situation is like? And then we will discuss in detail about material versus spiritual happiness. So let us go one by one. So what are the symptoms? So here you see in the verse, the comparison has been between jaundice and avidya. So jaundice, the symptom is that the sugar candy tastes bitter. And in avidya, when the person is ignorant about the spiritual truths, uh, what happens is the names, form, and pastimes of the Lord appear tasteless. Appear tasteless. So you would experience that in your life also sometimes when we invite people for attending spiritual programs, then people don't have appreciation for these opportunities that are there. They would say that it is boring or it is not entertaining and so on. So that is primarily because of avidya, because we are afflicted with avidya. We don't appreciate the uh, potency of the spiritual practices like chanting of the holy names, listening to the pastimes of the Lord, taking darshan of the form of the Lord, and so on. So that is what avidya would mean. So these are the symptoms. Now, covering the symptoms, we come to the cause of the symptom, the cause of the disease. And here we will actually spend some time to understand the cause of the disease. So jaundice, the cause has been pittopatapta, as given in the verse. Pittopatapta means there is excess bile secretion or maybe no bile secretion. Probably, I don't know. I'm not the expert. Cannot say whether it is because of the excess uh, or maybe paucity of bile secretion, but something to do with bile secretion that causes jaundice. And what is avidya? Avidya is about primarily two things. Avidya is not understanding our real identity. Our real identity is that we are servants of the Lord. So Chaitanya Charitamrit Madhya Leela, 20th chapter, verse number 108, mentions Krishner Swarup Hoy Krishna Jiver Swarup Hoy Krishna Nityadas. What is the real identity of the soul? The real identity of the soul is uh, uh, servant of the Lord. Krishner Nityadas, eternal servant of the Lord. But if we don't act upon that identity, if we act upon some false identity, then it lands up into trouble. Now, how do we understand this? Say, if we are working in an organization, we understand that we are an employer. We are not the, we are an employee. We are not the employer. Employer is the owner. He's actually the person who runs the organization, who is the uh, uh, entrepreneur who has actually started the organization, and so on. So there is somebody who is the employer, but we are the employee. And employee is supposed to work as per the direction of the employer. But if the employee, out of his illusion or out of his misinformation, or maybe because of some madness, he starts to behave like an employer, then what happens? Then there will be difficulty. The employer, he will not be able to please the employer. The employer will say, sir, you are acting like as if you are the employer and I am the employee. So the point is, if we don't act as per our true position, as per our real position, that can land us into difficulty. And that is what the avidya is. So when the living entity doesn't understand its true position, it lands up into difficulty. And then uh, not understanding what is the right object of love. Why this? Why don't we understand that we are the servants of Lord Krishna? It is because we are ignorant of the fact that who is the right object of love. At the moment, we are thinking uh, uh, that Lord Krishna is not the right object of love. We are thinking something else is the object of love, and that is mentioned in the same Chaitanya Charitamrita, uh, Madhya Leela, 20th chapter, 117th verse. So let us look at these two verses quickly. So 108, verse number 108 says, Jiver Swarup hoye Krishner Nityadas. Living entity's constitutional position is to be an eternal servant of Krishna. But we don't think ourselves as an eternal servant of Krishna. We think that we are the masters of this universe. We are actually the masters of our destiny and so on. Then verse number 117 says, Krishna bhuli sei jeev anadi bahirmukha ataiva maya tare de samsara dukha. So, in the previous slide, what we saw that the reason for avidya, the cause of our disease, that is avidya, is that we don't understand Lord Krishna to be the object of our love. And that is mentioned in this verse. Krishna bhuli sei jiva. So when we forget Krishna, then this jiva becomes bahirmukha. Bahirmukha means he starts looking for enjoyment, he starts looking for love in the external objects. Bahirmukha means turn outwards. Ataiv, Ataiv means therefore, Maya tare deye samsara dukha. And therefore, the Maya. Maya means which is different from Lord Krishna, which takes us away from Lord Krishna. All those things which takes us away from Lord Krishna is known as Maya. Ataiv, Maya tare. Tare means the living entity. To the living entity, deya samsara dukha. So the Maya gives the living entity dukkha in this world. Dukkha means misery in this world. So when we forget Krishna, what happens is we are attracted by the external feature, external world, and this external world, the illusory energy in the external world, gives us all kinds of misery in this world. Now let us look at the examples of what are the Maya, what are the examples of Maya. And when the jeev turns bahirmukha means turns external. What kind of shelter does it take? What kind of wrong shelters does the jeev take? So these are known as durashraya, wrong shelters. Now, the example of wrong shelter, one is at the individual level, where the jiva is only involved, and one is at the collective level. Collective level means at the level of the leadership in the society, in the external world. What kind of leadership do we encounter in our external world? So individually, the jiva becomes attracted towards what? Wealth, power, prestige, sex, and so on. So the jiva doesn't consider Lord Krishna to be the object of love. But the jiva thinks that the object of love, object of happiness is where? It is in wealth, acquiring more and more money. It is in power, becoming greater and greater in the society. It is acquiring prestige, having more and more name and fame, and maybe attracting the opposite sex and enjoying with the opposite sex. The more beautiful opposite sex we enjoy or we attract, the better or the more successful we are. So this is at the level of individual basis, where the jiva tries to take shelter on all these things. So every day jiva thinks that I am not happy now, but next day I will become happy if I do have more wealth, or if I have more power, or if I have more prestige. But that next day actually never comes, because it is misdirected happiness. Then at the collective level, at the level of leadership, what kind of leadership do we have, or do we see primarily in the society today? We have mostly atheistic leadership in our society, largely atheistic leadership. Atheistic leadership means people who don't understand about God, people who don't have any idea about God. They simply think that God is simply a imagination of people, and they are kind of uh, running around these kind of imaginative things out of their foolishness. So that is how they are. The atheistic leadership actually think about it. So, what are some of the examples of atheistic leadership? Atheistic leadership actually mislead the people because they themselves are not understanding about the science of God. They are not well grounded into the knowledge of scriptures. They themselves are confused. Therefore, they mislead the people. Now you can see. Uh, I will take this example from the latest hijab controversy that is going on in the country these days. So what goes on in the name of following scriptures and so on? It is all about making political unrest and nothing else. So the scriptures, example for example, hijab controversy comes from this holy scripture of Quran. So in Quran, as we understand, this Islam has 5 main principles, and one of the main principles is giving charity. uh, so people who are causing political unrest, they are saying that you should focus on their rights on wearing hijab and all that, but they don't focus on what they should follow. uh, Now giving charity is one of the main principles. If you are becoming, if you want to become very very sincere, you can also actually encourage people to give more and more charity, to become more and more sacrifice towards the society. But they are not teaching in that direction, but they are teaching in the opposite direction. That is something misleading the people. Oppose the endeavors. Now even if there is a attempt to rectify the situation, there is an attempt to educate people, even if the court is giving uh, some judgment, some order, the people or atheistic leadership actually is opposing all those judgments, say we don't agree with those judgments and so on. So that is the uh, such a grave situation. Then they dampen the enthusiasm. Even if people who want to take the right course to understand what is right and what is wrong, these kind of atheistic leadership actually dampen the enthusiasm of the people and continue to mislead them again and again. And this all happens mainly because such people themselves do not take to God consciousness. They are actually only about politics. They are only about gaining power, gaining more prestige, and so on. So this is mentioned in verse number 15th of Bhagavad Gita, where Srila Prabhupada actually exposes in his purport about the atheistic leadership. And that verse is Namam duskritino मूढ़ा prapadyante naradhama mayaya अपहरत ज्ञाना asuram bhavam ashrita. Yeah? So these people are really duskritino mudha. Mudha means foolish. They are naradhama. They are lowest of the mankind. Mayaya apaharat jnana. Mayaya apaharat jnana means their intelligence has been stolen away, and they are asuram. Asuram means who are not actually favorable to God, who are always envious, who are always have animosity towards God. So this is the cause of disease is actually on an individual basis and on collective basis. Individual basis, we are attracted towards wealth, power, prestige, and sex, which is in the looking in the wrong direction. And on collective basis, we are having leadership, which is primarily atheistic in nature, which continues to misguide us, mislead us, uh, dampen our enthusiasm, oppose our endeavors, and so on. Now, after understanding the symptoms, after understanding the cause, now let us also focus more upon the cure. What is the cure? And how Srila Prabhupada has mentioned the cure in the purport. What is the cure? The cure actually is the chanting of the holy names. Chanting of the holy names is the cure, like what we do at the beginning of the class, chanting one round of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, or any other authorized name of Lord. If somebody is chanting, it is going to cure us. And if you look at many of the world religious traditions, in every religious tradition you will find this practice of chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Christians do that on their rosary. Even Sikh people do that they have a practice of chanting the holy name, and like that you will see this chanting is present everywhere in all the major traditions of the religious traditions of the world. So how do we do the chanting? What is the method? The method is care and attention. Like you saw in this verse also, adarad anudinam. Adarad. Adarad means care and attention. With care and attention. So, what care do we have when we chant the holy names? The care that we have while chanting the holy name is that we pronounce it correctly. Uh, we do it with attention. We don't do it like sleeping or with laziness and so on. So, with care, with lot of respect, with lot of attentiveness, we do this chanting. What are the benefits of this chanting? The benefits of this chanting are it is easy to perform. You don't have to do very complicated yoga asanas or gymnastical exercises to do this chanting. You can simply find a clean place, a peaceful place, uh, and then maybe if it is spiritual also, there is some painting or there's some picture of the Lord, uh, like that, in the early hours of the day. And if you simply chant with respect and with the attention, that is all what you need to do, and that is possible for any common person or any common man, or women. uh, that is not very difficult, and it is beneficial. Why it is beneficial? Because it purifies our consciousness. It purifies our consciousness. And how does it purify our consciousness? There are two examples given in Srila Prabhupada's purport, and these examples are coming from uh, one of the compositions that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has written. It is known as Shikshastakam, and in this Shikshastakam prayers, it starts with Cheto Darpana Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. So Shikshastakam prayer is all about how one should engage in the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. What should we do? How should we do? And the benefits are mentioned right in the beginning of the prayer. And what is that? Cheto Darpan Marjanam Bhav Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. So Cheto Darpan Marjanam. So what is the effect of chanting? It cleanses the heart of our mind. And what does it cleanse of? It cleanses of lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy. And when we clean the mind with the chanting of the holy name, the mirror, it is compared to a mirror. And what happens in that mirror? If there is a dirt on the mirror, we cannot see our face in the mirror. But when we clean lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy, the dirt of lack pie, if we clean from that mirror, the soul can see its real position. And what is the real position? The real position is Krishner Nityadas, that we are the servants of the Lord. We are not the masters, we are actually servants of the Lord. And then another comparison that has been given is fire. Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. Bhava Mahadavagni. Bhava. Bhava means material. Bhava Mahadavagni. Maha means great. Davagni. Davagni means the fire that is there in the forest. So people who may have experience or who can maybe imagine that if there is a fire in the forest and there is fuel all around the forest, there are dry leaves, there are wooden dry wood and so on, and if some place in the forest catches fire, then spreading that fire rapidly in the forest is very easy, and it can become very dangerous. So having ourselves in this material world has been compared to Bhava Mahadavagni. So what does this holy name do? It provides relief. It actually acts as a shower. It acts as a rain shower, which actually extinguishes this Bhava Mahadavagni of material world for the chanter, for the practitioner. So what is the cure? The cure is chanting. The method is care and attention. The benefits is it is easy to do and it purifies ourselves. And how does it purify? There are two analogies given, mirror and fire. And where do we do this? Where do we go for the cure? Like if we have a disease, we need to go to the hospital. Huh? So for this cure, where should we go? So Prabhupada compares our International Society for Krishna Consciousness as a hospital. And in this hospital, we can take this cure. We provide this medicine, we provide the facility for chanting, we provide the facility to administer this particular medicine to the people who come and take shelter uh, in this particular hospital, in this divine hospital known as ISKCON, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Now, what happens in this hospital? Let us look at it. How is this cure facilitated by ISKCON? So this cure is facilitated, uh, first of all, the individual, the patient has to have some faith, little shraddha. Like when the patient goes to the doctor, he would have heard from his neighbor, from his friend, oh, that doctor is good. That doctor actually cured me also. And if you go to that doctor, you will also get cured. So the patient will have some little awareness, little shraddha, little faith that this hospital, if I go there, it can actually cure me. And that is called shraddha. At the very beginning stage, individual connects with little faith. Then once he's entering into the hospital, he becomes part of the hospital, he becomes part of the society called ISKCON. And then when he comes in the society, he starts making friendship, he starts making connection with people who are already in the hospital. So he will check with another patient, say, when did you come, how did you come, what brought you here. So somebody might say that when I came to this hospital, I saw the deities of the Lord, and when I saw the deities of the Lord, I felt very nice. It was really I felt that I was transported to some other world. Somebody might say that the decoration of the deities was very nice, and that inspired me. Somebody might say that, oh, I went to the hospital, there was a lecture on Bhagavad Gita was going on, and when I heard the lecture, I got inspired. I felt that they were talking about my situation only. That is how I got uh, attracted to this hospital. Then somebody might say that I liked the way the people were respecting each other, they were connecting with each other, and so on. Somebody might say I like the books, and so on and so forth. So when the patient comes to the hospital and mixes with other devotees in the society, that is how when he starts to do sadhu sangha, when he starts to do the association. And we have covered elaborately how to do that sadhu sangha in the previous classes. After getting inspiration from sadhu sangha, he starts to do the bhajan kriya. He starts to do the same thing what other people are doing in the society. He starts to do chanting of the holy name, he starts to do reading of the books, he starts to attend classes, he starts to go to the various temples, various pilgrimages. He starts to uh, follow the rules and regulation what people are doing. Like for example, we follow four regulative principles like no meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, no illicit sex. He also starts to do those regulative principles. And then the cure starts. The cure starts when the medicine is starting to getting administered. The cure starts. And when the cure starts, the disease starts to subside. This disease come, or the volume of the disease or the strength of the disease starts to go down. And that is what it is: cleansed of unwanted things. The unwanted things, the lag pie, lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy, it starts to come down. And that is known as anartha nivritti. So this is how the cure happens. So in cure, what happens is, if you see, if you imagine an x-axis and a y-axis, and there is a positive side of the x-axis and there is a negative side of the x-axis. So cure actually means that from the negative side of the x-axis, we are actually coming to the zero part of the x-axis, origin. Like in the mathematics, we used to see there is an origin, there is a positive side, there is a negative side. So when the cure is going on, we are regaining our health. We are getting rid of the disease. Slowly and slowly, the disease is going away, and the natural health is coming back. But when the health is coming back, actually, this is not the I would say uh, the very healthy situation. Hmm? So uh, in the previous slide, we were talking about cure. In this slide, in this next slide, we are talking about beyond cure. Beyond cure means becoming healthy, becoming strong, becoming happy. So when we are uh, getting cured of the disease, we get that glimpse of little happiness, we get that glimpse of little strength, but not complete strength, but not complete happiness, or not sufficient enough strength, or not sufficient enough happiness. But once our anarthas are gone to a good extent, to a large extent, our anarthas are gone, then we start to become healthy, then we start to become very happy, we start to become joyous, and so on. And how that health is gained? This health is gained in these stages. Nishtha. Nishtha. Once anarthas are gone to a large extent, the person has now tasted the spiritual happiness to some extent, little bit. He has tasted some part of it, and he becomes very, very sincere, a very, very committed person. So that is nishtha. Uh, Slowly and slowly, he further advances, and then he develops more and more taste, ruchi. Now it has become a favorite activity. So nishtha means he's now sincere, but continuing further, this becomes its favorite activity. Now it is my favorite activity. And then asakti means now the person cannot live without it. Now person cannot live without it. Kind of he becomes addicted to devotional service. He cannot live without it. And then after that, the stage of bhava comes. Bhava is the stage which is preliminary awakening of the dormant love of God. So this is that stage where the dormant love of God now starts to awaken within the heart of the living entity. Now, what are the symptoms of bhava? There are three symptoms Prabhupada mentions in the purport. There is no bodily conception. The person understands that Krishna and Maya are different. Maya is actually uh, trying to pull me down, and Krishna is the real object of love. That is what he understands. No bodily conception means he understands that every living entity is a soul, is a spiritual being. And then once he understands Krishna is the real object of love, and what actually is Maya, then he becomes undisturbed by Maya. Undisturbed by Maya. So Prabhupada here mentions a verse, Krishna Surya Sama, Maya hai andhakar, jahan Krishna, wahan nahi mayar adhikar. So Krishna is like sun and Maya is like shadow. So when you see there is a light, uh, there is always a shadow. Light and shadow go together. Similarly, Krishna and Maya are there uh, in front of Jiva always. So Jiva is the Tatastha Shakti. He can either move towards Krishna or he can move towards Maya. So like that, this person at the Bhava stage understand what is Krishna and what is Maya. And because he understands very clearly, he remains undisturbed by Maya. He understands that Krishna is like sun and Maya is like shadow. If he always faces the sun, he doesn't have to worry about the shadow. So this is how he regains the health, how the jiva regains the health. Now, as I mentioned to you, the whole focus of Srila Prabhupada in this purport is about explaining that how by the process of chanting one can overcome the material disease of avidya, and slowly and gradually, gramadi, like what is mentioned in this verse, swadvi kramad, gradually, swadvi kramad. Swad means gradually that taste of spiritual happiness actually manifest in our behavior, in our tongue. So here in this some of these few slides, we will focus more on understanding the difference between material and spiritual happiness. So if we understand the difference between material and spiritual happiness, appreciate it much more deeply, then our commitment, our conviction towards chanting of the holy name will grow more and more, deeper and deeper. So in this particular slide, uh, we are trying to explain the difference between material and spiritual happiness with the help of a graph. So in this graph, this is the x-axis and this is actually happiness. And on the y, this is the y-axis, which is happiness, and this is the x-axis, which is time. So spiritual happiness is something like this. It increases with time. On the contrary, the material happiness is like this. It decreases with time. Now, how do we understand this? So when we are young, when we are children, when we are young of youth and so on, our senses are healthy, and using our senses we can enjoy many things. Our eyesight is good, our capacity to taste things is good, our strength is good, our immunity to fight disease is good, and so on. So when we are young, our capacity to enjoy material things is more. But as we grow old, our senses become weaker, our body actually becomes weaker, and so on. Our capacity to enjoy material happiness decreases. And this is what this graph is trying to show. So material happiness depends upon the body's capacity to enjoy, and it decreases with time. As the person ages, the capacity to enjoy material happiness decline. But spiritual happiness with time actually increases. Spiritual happiness with time increases. And how this happens? This happens through purification. So once we continue to chant the holy name, we continue to hear Krishna Katha, we continue to associate with devotees, we continue to follow the four regulative principles with more and more sincerity, with more and more uh, commitment, and so on, then it brings us purification. And with that purification, our spiritual happiness continue to increase uh, in an exponential way with time. So here you can see that we have shown initially a little gap between the spiritual happiness at the young age and material happiness at the young age. So in the spirit at the young age, generally people are not mature enough to understand the spiritual principles. When they are children, when they are young, generally they don't really appreciate uh, the practices, spiritual practices, and so on. So initially when they start to do these spiritual practices, then the happiness they don't experience much. First of all, they are not convinced, and then when they are not convinced, they don't do it properly, and when they don't do it properly, the taste is not there. So spiritual happiness initially starts with less pleasure. Rather, it sounds more and more bitter in the beginning. But as we continue to learn, as we continue to grow, and we appreciate, we understand the world around us is dukhalayam ashashvatam, we engage in our spiritual practices more and more purification comes, and that's how the spiritual happiness increases day by day or with time. Then this particular verse also helps you to understand the difference between material and spiritual happiness. And this is actually a little graphical representation of verse number 37 from chapter number 18 of the Bhagavad Gita, and verse number 38 from the same chapter. So verse number 37 is talking about happiness in the mode of goodness. In sattva, what is the nature of happiness? And it says, which sounds like poison in the beginning, but nectar in the end. That is what is known as happiness in the mode of goodness. And spiritual happiness is also same as happiness in mode of goodness. So that is the same way this spiritual happiness also works. In the beginning it is poison, but in the end it is like nectar. So an example can be given: a student who wakes up early in the morning, who does his coursework properly, regularly, uh, and so on, with sincerity and so on. So uh, he might have to take the trouble of waking up early in the morning, studying the books, and all that effort he has to do. But in the end, it is nectar. When he gets his grade, when he gets his marks, it is nectar. It is really uh, uh, very sweet. That victory or that success sounds very sweet. So that is happiness in mode of goodness, or happiness, the nature of happiness in the spiritual activities. Similarly, chanting also to us sounds like bitter. We don't have the taste for chanting, but if we do it adarad anukramadi, adarad anudinam, with respect and with continuous sincerity every day, initially will break this barrier of poison and enter into the domain of nectar. It will start to taste sweet to us. On the contrary, material happiness is nectar in the beginning, but poisonous in the end. Nectar in the beginning and poisonous in the end. So, verse number 38 describes the uh, rajas, the rajoguna, mode of passion, happiness in mode of passion, which is nectar in the beginning, but in the end, in the long run, it is like poison. So, similarly, a student who doesn't study well, who only is interested in watching movies, in going to play games, maybe much more than what is recommended for good health and so on. Uh, uh, and he's very careless about his actual job, which is to study and so on. So he might find some happiness, he might find some joy in the beginning in watching movies and gossiping around with friends and so on. It might give him some joy, but in the end result will be poison. So that is how we can understand. So world around us primarily is there in mode of passion only, where we are only looking for wealth, uh, power, prestige, sex, and so on. Hmm? So all these things, wealth, power, prestige, sex, etc., only give us some momentary happiness, but in the end result is only dukkha, only misery. This is another graphics on explaining the difference between material and spiritual happiness. So the first graphic here you see is about the material happiness. What is material happiness? Material happiness requires senses like tongue, eyes, nose, ear, sense of touch, and so on, and sense objects. Eyes want to see beautiful things, ear want to hear beautiful sounds, and nose want to smell nice, pleasant smell, and so on. So the senses and sense objects, they want to come in contact with each other with the desire to enjoy, with the desire to enjoy. But we understand that both the senses and the sense objects are temporary. Their capacity is limited and they are temporary. So the pleasure that we derive out from senses and sense objects is actually also very, very temporary. It is not permanent, it is not long lasting. So material happiness is temporary in nature. And Bhagavad Gita 5.22 actually makes a very good point around it. So what is this verse, Bhagavad Gita 5.22? It says, Bhagavad Gita 5.22 says, uh, uh, यह ही संस्पर्शजा भोगा दुःख योनया एवते आद्यंतवन्तः कौन्तेय न तेषु रमते बुधा. ये ही samsparshja bhoga. So people who are only interested in enjoying sansparshja bhoga. Sansparshja bhoga means the senses. Uh, The end result is dukkha yonaya evate. Dukkha yonaya. The end result is only dukkha. So here the word used is yonaya. Yonaya. Yonaya means womb. So womb means if a lady gets pregnant, then ultimately she has to deliver. There is no other outcome. The baby has to come out. So the nature of material happiness is uh, the baby comes out, but this baby is dukkha. Only dukkha is there. So if there is only desire to enjoy of the senses with the sense objects, the only end result is dukkha yonaya evate. And then the next line it says adyantavantah kaunteya. Adyantavantah. It has a beginning, it has an end. What it means is it is temporary. It gives you some pleasure for the moment, but then ultimately it fades away. It fades away. You need to once again engage into the same activity to get that same pleasure, but again it will fade away. Like for example, if we want to eat gulab jamun, We eat one gulab jamun, we have some enjoyment. But second gulab jamun, maybe another little bit more enjoyment. But third gulab jamun, we cannot, because the capacity is limited. Fourth gulab jamun, it actually starts to sounds bitter. We cannot take more than that. If somebody forcefully serves us, we actually look at that person with a very scornful eye. So the point is, the nature of material happiness is temporary, but spiritual happiness is eternal. Why it is eternal? Because it is a connection between the soul and the super soul, and the super soul is Krishna. And it is not done with the desire to enjoy, it is done with the desire to serve, it is done with the desire to please the Lord. And that is why it is eternal. Eternal means, if an eternal entity serves an eternal entity, the supreme eternal entity, which is the reservoir of pleasure, uh, then with that, when eternal plus eternal gives you eternal happiness, gives you eternal happiness. And where do we find this? We find that in verse number 28 in chapter number 6. What does that verse says? That verse says, Yunjanevam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmashah सुखेन ब्रह्म संस्पर्शम अत्यंतम सुखम अश्नुते. सुखेन brahma samsparsham atyantam sukham ashnute. So what Lord Krishna is saying here is, one who regularly and properly continue to engage in the yogic practices, what is the end result? The end result is sukhena, is happiness. And how does happiness comes? Because Brahma samsparsham, because that yogi samsparsham, he actually connects, he actually touches the Brahma, touches not in the physical sense, but in the more of a spiritual sense. And atyantam sukham ashnute. Atyantam means a lot of sukha, a lot of spiritual happiness. Param sukh, he derives param sukh. So that is the difference between material and spiritual happiness. One is afflicted with desire to enjoy for one own self. The other one is to desire to serve the super self, the Lord, Supreme Lord Krishna. So another slide on the difference between material versus spiritual happiness. Material happiness is futile. Futile means that you anticipate some happiness, but you don't get anything. For example, you want to go and eat gulab jamun, and in the end, you find that there is no gulab jamun at all. There is no gulab jamun. So, what I'm going to enjoy? So, material happiness, the nature is futile. Then, insufficient. Insufficient means, even if you are able to get some gulab jamun, you find that the gulab jamun is actually not as per your taste. Maybe somebody added salt instead of sugar, or maybe it was cooked and the texture is very hard. So that is the second nature of material happiness. Even if sometimes we get it, it is not as per our liking, it is insufficient. And then the third aspect is, it is temporary. It is temporary, as we saw in the previous slide. Maybe you find a gulab jamun which is as per our taste, but that taste is short lived, it doesn't last for long. You had that gulab jamun, you enjoyed it for maybe 15 minutes, and then it is gone. What is spiritual happiness? On the contrary, spiritual happiness is very special. Very special means, it is like, for example, we have a lot of spirit souls. Plants also have spirit soul, animals also have spirit souls, human being also have spirit soul. But spiritual happiness is only meant a special prerogative of human beings. It is not there for everyone. And even within human beings also, some selected few people only are able to taste this spiritual happiness. And where does it? Bhagavad Gita says that. Bhagavad Gita says that in chapter number 7, verse number 3. It says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatvatah. The Lord says, out of 1,000 people, only few become interested in understanding the spiritual truth. And out of 1,000 of those people who become interested, only few actually come to me. So spiritual happiness is rare. It is meant only for very special people. Then it increases means the more we remember the Lord, the more our happiness, the quantity increases. Then it is non-dependent. Non-dependent means, for example, a person who is alcoholic, who wants to drink alcohol, he is dependent on alcohol. He always have to look for alcohol in order to derive that kind of a low graded happiness. I would not call it happiness, but some low graded pleasure. Huh? But is spiritual happiness, anywhere a person goes, anywhere he is chanting the holy name, anywhere he is hearing Krishna Katha, he is deriving pleasure out of it. He is not dependent upon some external thing. He is becoming an Atmaram only by uh, hearing the name of the Lord, by hearing Krishna Katha, by hearing associating with devotees, he becomes happy. Then generous. It is not only make the devotee happy, the practitioner happy, but it also makes other happy. Why? Because when a person takes to spiritual processes, his lust, anger, greed, pride, illusion, envy, the selfishness goes away. And when the selfishness goes away, the heart become compassionate. When the compassionate and with the compassionate heart, the person wants to serve more and more people, more and more people. He wants to increase his joy more and more, more and more. So that is the nature of spiritual happiness. Now, how do we get this spiritual happiness? We can get this spiritual happiness by strengthening our intelligence, and by doing so, we are able to control our mind more and more. And that happens in two ways. What is those two ways? First of all, we need to have the conviction, and then we need to have the commitment. Conviction means our intelligence becomes strong. Theoretically, we understand that spiritual happiness is better than material happiness, but theoretical understanding alone does not work. Uh, we also need to take the treatment, and in order to take the treatment, we need to do the commitment. For example, we have the conviction that a particular medicine can cure us, but if we don't take that medicine, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the evening, and so on, if we don't do that, we don't commit ourselves for taking that medicine, the medicine won't work. So both are important. Conviction, which is coming from Shastra, which is by regularly hearing Krishna Katha, regularly coming in the association of devotee, we don't get the commitment. And commitment means chanting the holy names regularly, a particular prescribed number of rounds regularly. We don't get commitment. So commitment is with heart. So we need to commit. We need to do this. And finally, this little analogy of mother, child, doctor, and medicine is to give you an idea of uh, how does this work. So intelligence is like mother, and mind is like child. So child is always very naughty. He likes to do mischievous things. So like that, our mind is there. And a doctor is like our guru, and Shastra is like the doctor. So when we go to the guru might give us some pleasant things. How are you? How are you doing? You look so nice, and so on. So he might speak some pleasant word, which might appear very pleasing to the child, which might appear very pleasing to the mind. But at the same time, guru also instruct the mother, the intelligence, that don't do this, take this medicine, chant the medicine of the holy name regularly, and so on and so forth. So the mother actually keeps on bringing back the child again and again. No, you have to take this medicine. You don't have to go out and play every now and then. You need to do this discipline again and again. So guru strengthens the intelligence. The Shastra intelligence strengthens the intelligence like the mother. And the mother actually keeps an eye on the child, which is like the mind. And that is how we once again gain our spiritual strength more and more, and become spiritually happy, spiritually much more stronger, and so on. So with that, I would like to conclude this class. I hope that was uh, enlightening to all of us, the importance of chanting of the holy name, and how to look and differentiate between material and spiritual happiness. And hope this would have inspired you to uh, improve your sadhana in your own lives. So thank you very much. With that, all glories to Shri Updeshamrit. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Rup Goswami. Any questions, takeaway, and comments, maybe we can discuss now. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Ishwar Prabhu. Thank
It
you.
was really very nice, and frankly, right now the situation is that questions are not really bothering now. They used to be a situation, but now things appear rather simple, that this is the way and this is the way we should proceed further. So,
Yeah, so
really,
you have
really happy for all this what you have been doing, and really happy for for most of my friends who are attending. And there is a positivity. There are signs of something, things improving at perhaps at multiple levels in life.
Okay.
So I feel quite bold and quite interested, and feel that should have been done much earlier, but whenever God permitted, I think that is the stage.
yeah.
Sometime I wonder that generally in literature we study that too much familiarity with things breeds contempt. So do you see any kind of overdosing or excess of bhakti making people sick? Rather, sometimes there is over treatment with doctors. Sometimes we over treat people, and the results are not really very good, both for the doctor as well as for the patient. But right now, I don't think there is anything excess in spirituality, or you have some example anywhere in the literature where a devotee has done more than what he was supposed to do. Are there any instances of overdoing or excess of bhakti? That's only it's not it's a theoretical consideration. I don't think it's really matters practically on the surface.
So the answer is given in Nectar of Instruction itself.
Right.
So if you read, I think it was in text number 3. So utsaha nischaya dhairyat.
Right.
So what is the third word? Dhairya.
Okay.
Dhairya means patience.
Yes.
And Prabhupada gives a very nice analogy to explain patience. Prabhupada says that if a lady gets married, so she cannot expect the child the very next day.
Right.
She has to conceive first of all, and then have to wait patiently for 9
Right.
months
Yes.
to get the result. So
Yes.
similarly in devotional life also, when we come into the contact of devotees, we start engaging in the practice of devotional service, we start to see the benefits. We start to see our life becoming more calm, more serene, less disturbing, and so on. That those kind of benefits we start to see.
Right.
But many times when the devotee become a little impatient, no, I am not getting that much pleasure. Actually, the pleasure mentioned in the Shastra is that from devotional service we can get unlimited pleasure, infinite pleasure.
Yes.
So then they become impatient. So
Yes.
that's where we need to understand that in devotional service the pleasure doesn't come always of our own accord.
Yes.
It is actually unless and until the Lord becomes merciful to us, unless it is the desire of the Lord that the devotee experience that kind of a spiritual bliss.
Yes.
The Lord doesn't give his devotion, doesn't give his bhakti so cheaply and so quickly. He tests first
Yes.
of all.
Yes.
He gives test, and that test is taken by who? By Maya Devi. And
Right.
the Maya Devi will put lot of pralobhans, uh, lot of difficult tests in different ways, and that's
Right.
where she would test us, and that's when we cross over all those tests. Then when the
Right.
Lord is convinced, then he understand, now yes, now I can actually do something about this devotee.
Right.
So like the verse says, like the topic in the beginning, what was the topic? Topic was the way we actually uh, practice devotional service not for its taste, but for its
Yes.
healing potency. So we
Right.
do the practice of devotional service as a matter of duty,
Right.
and what comes out of it is something which we wait unless and until the Lord becomes merciful on us. So that's
Right.
how I would put it. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. So thank you very much. Very nice question. And I think you are already, like what we mentioned, conviction and commitment. So you
Yes.
are
Yes. Yes.
already convinced when you said that you don't have many questions now.
Yes.
So that is a stage when we are kind of convinced that the process is good, the process is going to work. Now comes the next stage where we need to commit to the process. We
Quite.
need to
Quite.
take the
I think.
medicine morning,
Yes. Yes.
like
For
what we
that,
call today.
I'll have some more discussion. Right. Asking for your. You are a spiritual teacher, and you have taken Diksha and all. So I would like one day to just take a class. What's your routine from say when you wake up in the morning till you sleep? Because that will give us a practical idea where do we stand and how best we can fill in those gaps which we find from your routine. Because
Sure, sure.
that is very important. Because there are certain things which you are just not able to do. Where feeling perhaps we will not be able to achieve that level. So we
Yeah,
would
yeah.
really like to understand that situation, what you are doing, so that we can take concrete lessons from your routines and how to apply those standards in our own life. Maybe at a later stage, that
Sure, sure.
practical things which we should be doing to further this process.
Okay, Prabhuji. We will take that slowly
Yes.
and gradually.
Right. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Okay. Thank you, Ji. Okay. Any other comment or question, or are the devotees satisfied with the presentation?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Pradeep Prabhu. So you found it interesting?
Very, very interesting. I'm impressed with your teaching. Very nice.
So you should give credit to my teachers also, because what I am doing is
Definitely.
as the result of my teachers only.
Definitely, yes.
Primarily Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. You had the good fortune of meeting with him and hearing his class at least once, I would think. So
Yeah, we are enjoying every one of your classes. Everyone.
okay, thank you very much. I thank to Chaitanya Charan Prabhu also for that. Most of the
Thank
content
you.
that I take in my class is coming from his presentation and his teachings. So he deserves the credit actually. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. It's really helping. It's really giving us,
Good perspective.
giving us the perspective and insight, and it's really grounds you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you,
So
Prabhu.
thank you very much. Thank you for coming and also giving me the opportunity to present and share all this with you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Hare Krishna.
So
Goodbye.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Okay. Thank you, Ji. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Rakesh. Hare Krishna. Thank you.